Mr. Secretary, it was announced today that you're headed to Rome for the Pope's inaugural Mass. Pope Leo, in different parts of his life, has spoken passionately about the plight of migrants. How do you reconcile what the Vatican has said on compassion for migrants with the Trump administration's policies?
Well, first of all, the Pope is not a political figure. I know he's covered like one, but they're not. They're the earthly head of the Roman Catholic Church. And the church has strong social doctrine teachings, and I think there is not incompatibility. We too are compassionate towards migrants. I would argue there's nothing compassionate about mass migration. There's nothing compassionate about open borders that allows people to be trafficked here. There's nothing compassionate about either to the American people about flooding our country with individuals that are criminals and prey on our communities. There's nothing compassionate about any of that. But I would caution all of you and everyone, I understand there's this temptation to cover the papacy as a political office. It is not a political office. It is a spiritual office. And it is one that it has social teachings that are aligned with the faith and with the gospel. And but I don't believe those are incompatible with a national policy that tries to prevent mass migration, which is not compassionate to people that are being trafficked into our country, and is also not compassionate to people in the country who suffer gravely. When 1 million people come here illegally, if 1,000 of them are dangerous criminals, those are a lot of victims, and that's not fair either, and that's not compassionate. So, by the way, I mean, and I don't mean this to be snarky, but the Vatican has rules about who can come in and who can overstay. So every place has that. It's what you do to protect your sovereignty. We are the most compassionate nation in the world. Every single year, 1 million people legally migrate to the United States permanently. Permanent residency. No other nation is nearly as compassionate as we are. We've been doing it for a long time. But it can't be 5 million people a year that come, with 4 million illegally. That's just not sustainable, and there's nothing compassionate about it for Americans.
Mr. Secretary, your comments on mass migration are obviously correct that it's not compassionate, and the journey that migrants have to go on is obviously devastating. I think the concern that people have about the compassion is that they think about the mega prison in El Salvador accused of torture and overcompensation of prisoners, and they say those are deterrent policies for sure, but they're not compassionate. I wonder how you would respond.
No, those prisons, that's all anti-Bukele propaganda. It's just not true.
Human Rights Watch and other
They're wrong. They hate Bukele, and so they make these things up, and they can if they want to, but it's not true. The people that were removed from this country were dangerous criminals. These were not migrants. These were criminals. Okay, there's migrants or people that come here, they violate the law because they broke our immigration laws. Those people are deported to their home countries. These are dangerous criminals, which Venezuela would not accept. These were trained at Agua gang members and MS-13 members who are Salvadorian, who were deported to their country, and they're criminals, and their gang affiliation is a crime in El Salvador. And that's why they were able to, you couldn't even live in El Salvador. You couldn't walk the streets of El Salvador. Now it's one of the safest countries in the region. That's why President Bukele has 90% approval rating. So, but going back to your point, there's a difference between a migrant and a criminal migrant. And if someone is in this country unlawfully, our law says you deport them to their home country. And most countries will accept their migrants, some don't. But if you're a criminal migrant, then you're going to be deported, ideally to your home country. But in the case of the Venezuelan gangsters, the Venezuelan regime wouldn't take them. So we had to find somewhere to send them. What they're not going to be is in our prison system. Because you know where prison gangs grow and metastasize? Inside of prisons. That's how MS-13 emerged, out of the prison system of California. And then it migrated down to El Salvador. And of course, has had a presence in the United States. So I think that at the end of the day, I would be very careful about that, because unlawful migration is one thing. Unlawful migration by criminal actors who come into this country and commit horrifying crimes is a whole different category.
How long should they stay in prison?
Who's this?
The people that have been deported to El Salvador.
Well, they need to go back to they're gangsters, and being a gang member is a crime in El Salvador. If they could be sent to Venezuela, if Venezuela would accept them. President Bukele has offered to send them to Venezuela. And then there are MS-13 gang members who are Salvadoran. And those are also in that prison. We've deported some of them. And obviously, they're Salvadoran citizens. They're not American citizens. They are Salvadoran citizens unlawfully in the United States who are members of gangs. And they're under the jurisdiction of their nation's laws. So we're not going to opine on what their nation's laws are. In the case of the Venezuelan gang members, we would have sent them to Venezuela, except Venezuela wouldn't take them.
It's just they've been in prison with no sentence, there's been no process, so they could be no definite legal process.
They're gang members that were in the country unlawfully. We offered to send them to Venezuela. The Venezuelans wouldn't take them. So we found an alternative location. Where they're not going to be is in the prison system of the United States, recruiting new gang members while in prison so they can come out and create even more crime in our country.